Gag of the day goes to Richard Herring. At least Doctor Who being a woman means the BBC have saved some money, right, guys? Here's the thing. I literally couldn't care less about who earns what at the BBC. When I worked there, I earned 220 quid a show for those doing a breakfast show. I couldn't care less. You're being told, dear listener, to hate something that yesterday you didn't care about. You know who's telling you to hate, right? You know who's telling you to hate the BBC and the amount of money that's being paid. There are three groups of people. There's the editor of the Daily Mail, which completely hates the BBC. There's our boss, Murdoch, who would love the BBC to disappear, because then it gives Sky free rein. And there's the Tory government that hates the BBC as well. Those are the people that are telling you to hate them, to hate the BBC because Chris Evans earns £2.5 million. And the arguments I've had with people on Twitter, there's a conspiracy theory going around, because loads of people threw it at me, that you're not allowed to mention Israel on the BBC. You're apparently not allowed to mention Israel on the BBC. And grown men were tweeting that to me earlier on today as though it were fact. And then when I asked them for evidence, they pointed to some bloke who claims he lost his job on the BBC because he wasn't allowed to mention Israel. But then I did a bit of digging, and some other people were saying this guy never even worked at the BBC. Who cares that Graham Norton gets £850,000? That doesn't include his TV series, because that goes through a separate company. Who cares? No one cares. You're feeling angry because Paul Dacre, Murdoch and the government are telling you to feel angry. You don't have to feel angry. The only one that really confused me, right, out of all of them, all of the people that were getting their millions and their hundreds of thousands and all that, Stephen Nolan. I'm Stephen Nolan. Stephen Nolan gets £500,000 for the Stephen Nolan show. Now, with the greatest of respect, I've been on the Stephen Nolan show. I used to review the papers on there once every few weeks, and you'll hear Charlie Wolf on there and Lembit Opik and, those kind of people. And I did it a few times. You know how much I got paid to be sat next to a studio for 3 hours? 80 quid. 80 quid I got, and I took it because it was 80 quid. And they got me a cab to and from. It was 80 quid. £500,000 for Stephen Nolan. That's the one that's got me scratching my head going, because I couldn't do John Humphrey's job. I don't think I could do John Humphrey's job. He gets about 650,000. I could host Mastermind, but I couldn't host the Today programme. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do Claudia Winkleman's job. I could do Stephen Nolan's job. And I tell you what, if you're giving him £500,000, I'll do it for 150,000. How's about that? Yeah? I'll do it I'll host 3 nights a week and a TV show on Irish TV. I'll do it, 150 grand. Is that a deal? Have we got a deal? Who cares? Who cares that Eddie Mair gets £350,000? Who cares? I literally couldn't give a stuff. There are some people, there'll be broadcasters and podcasters crowing away at this because they're jealous, because they muffed up their chance of earning that money. If they just learnt to keep their mouths shut, then they would have been in with a chance of getting that money. There's jealousy. There's all kind of bellends everywhere, that used to work for the BBC and ballsed it up, either because they were too gobby, they were too arrogant, or they made lewd sexual comments about the Weather Girls. And those people will be fuming that Chris Evans gets £2.5 million. They'll be fuming at that. The outrage of it. It's disgusting. I couldn't care less. I literally could not care less. And if you think, right, deep in your heart of hearts, you don't care either. One of the things about phone-in radio is What's the Stephen Colbert line I often quote? If we're not scaring you, we're not doing our jobs. And a lot of phone-in radio is designed by its very nature to get you to phone in, of course. And to get you to phone in, it's really easy to be contentious and to stir up fear and anger. You're more likely to call in if I stir up fear and anger. And I don't really play those cards anymore. I can do, and I do from time to time, but very rarely do I play the fear and the anger cards. But that's what they've been doing today. They've been telling you that you should be angry. The front page of the Daily Mail. Pay panic at the BBC. Meltdown as dossier names 100 staff on more than PM. Why is the Prime Minister's salary always... Well, the Prime Minister get back. It's about £145,000, right? So why... I don't understand why the Prime Minister's salary is kind of the benchmark to which we, people earning over that are normally, scum, and people underneath that are hard work. I don't get it. The front page continues, only a third are women. Yeah, that's pretty lousy. That's pretty lousy that there's such a huge gap between men and women. I'm not surprised by it, but that's pretty lousy. Bosses tried to have report delayed. Top names warned they face public backlash. I didn't hear it. Maybe we'll try and find some audio from it later on. The Jeremy Vine show today, when people phoned up. Did you hear any of that? Oh, there was a man. I heard a clip of it on PM. And here's another thing. The BBC totally went for it today. They went for it. John Humphreys, who gets £650,000 a year, went on the media show to be grilled about the amount of money that he earned. It was incredible. The media show, they dedicated about 2/3 of it to the BBC Pay, and they got one of the highest paid presenters on to be grilled. You wouldn't get that at Sky News. You wouldn't get that at the ITV. I know they're not publicly funded, but if there was a scandal about those news organisations, you wouldn't get that transparency. Then straight after the media show at 5 o'clock, can you go and help him? He's struggling to put a call through, please. Straight after the media show at 5 o'clock, the first story was the pension scandal. The second story was them talking about the fact that the people at the BBC are getting so well paid. And Eddie Mair, who's on about £350,000 a year, turn this microphone off, please. Eddie Mair, who's on about £350,000 a year, grilled one of the bosses at the BBC and destroyed him. Absolutely destroyed him. He asked the question, why do you get paid more money if you have a penis? The bloke could not answer it. Could not answer it. So, not only did the BBC put their hands up and take it on the chin, they questioned themselves. I heard a little clip of Jeremy Vine. And it was uncomfortable. He wasn't necessarily so comfortable, but he took it. He said, you can phone in, you can ask me anything you want. I don't care how much they're getting paid. Stephen Nolan does confuse me, but I don't care how much they're getting paid. I don't care. It's jealousy, and it's people telling you that you should be angry with something that 24 hours ago never even crossed your mind. And most people, it's something like, was it 0.1%, less than that, of the people earn that much money. Most people, my wife don't take that much money by a long shot. Doesn't come anywhere close to that. Doesn't come anywhere close to that. She's on telly, she's on the radio. Not a fraction of that. And it is a competitive market. John Humphrey said 8 years ago he was approached by a commercial company and was offered twice the money that he was getting 8 years ago. I can well believe it. Again, Stephen Nolan, I don't know where he'd go, but I don't mean to make this about Stephen Nolan, but it really does. That's the one. I'm going, what? Really? I don't understand it. Maybe I'm bitter about that. I don't know. Guys, it's jealousy. It's smoke and mirrors. It's not important. It's really not important how much those people get paid. It is a very soft well, not so soft now, and not so subtle attempt to discredit the BBC so that we all want it to be dismantled. And when the BBC is gone, television news will be owned by Rupert Murdoch. That will be it. And listen, I've not got a problem against Rupert Murdoch necessarily. I've been on Sky News and he pays my wages here. But I don't want him to be the sole controller of, or the majority controller of news outlets in the United Kingdom. That is obviously wrong, if that were the case. Of course that's wrong. And people say, well, the BBC's biased. Well, is it? Is it? Sometimes they are, yeah, but if people from the right are saying the BBC is biased to the left, and people from the left are saying the BBC is biased to the right, doesn't that tell you that they're probably hitting the middle fair enough? We can talk about that. I don't really have a lot to say. I just think all these idiots that we get, you can't talk about Israel on the BBC. Don't be so bloody stupid. Don't be so bloody stupid. You think that when we're working at the BBC, we all get a meeting saying, right, here's what you can't talk about. You can't talk about Israel, and you've got to say you bum Muslims. What a load of old bloody rubbish. If you believe that, you're a cretin and you don't deserve to own a radio or a television. You deserve what you're eventually going to get in a few years' time when the BBC is gone. Comprende? 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. This is Talk Radio.